All right, I think we should go ahead and get started. I know people are still going to be joining us, but I would love to go ahead and get started. So I'm honored today to introduce Margot Friedman, who's principal of DuPont Circle Communications, which is a full-service communications firm founded in 2014, specializing in writing opinion editorials for nonprofit organizations. I first worked with Margot 13 years ago, and she's a consummate professional. She focuses her communications efforts on persuasion and service of important causes. And as a cancer survivor herself, she knows personally how important our issues are. She first delivered this workshop at our symposium in 2017, and she developed a wonderful worksheet to help tell your story and apply it to a policy issue. We've had incredible feedback on this worksheet over the years and continue to use it to help advocates hone their storytelling skills. So I am going to turn it over to you, Margot.
Hello. I suggest, thank you, Shelley. I suggest that everyone go ahead and unmute yourself. And then whenever you want to chime, we're a small enough group. I think if you want to just, whenever you want to chime in, you just chime in. I don't think it will be a problem. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
I love seeing your faces. It's been great because we just have been talking at the screen, and it's nice to actually see all of you. So thank you for showing your cameras.
Yeah, thank you. I suggest, I don't know, I'm not an aficionado on Zoom. I'm just learning. But in the upper right-hand corner, you can do speaker view or gallery view. I suggest doing gallery view because then you will be able to see everybody, especially when one person starts talking, we'll be able to see that person. I have shared my screen. Can everybody see it?
Yeah.
Okay. So there's also a chat feature. I'm not seeing the chat feature just right now, but hopefully if you want to say something in, Shelley, can you see chat?
I can see it, yeah.
Okay, if someone asks a question in chat, let me know. I'm not sure
Okay.
I'm seeing it right now, but so it sounds like, do we just want to do a real quick round of introductions and where you're from or your interest in this? Just a real quick. Do you want to just?
Yeah, maybe Nancy.
I'm Nancy Howe. I'm calling in from Phoenix, Arizona, and it is my first year. I'm an NCCS advocate, ambassador, and I've never done this before, so I need help on telling the story. Thank you.
Okay. Can we go to Erin? Unmute.
How's that? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Erin Cummings. This is actually my second year doing CPAT, and it's such a great time last year. I decided to come back, and I've told my story before. I've actually told it a few times, but I always can use a refresher on how to do it better. So that's why I'm doing this workshop.
Great. Can we go to Myra?
Hi, I'm Myra, and this is my first involvement with the NCCS, and I'm excited, and I'm a little rusty, but I'm looking forward to working with you guys. I'm a year-and-a-half breast cancer survivor, and I'm with Cancer Awareness Network.
Excellent.
Thanks, Myra.
And can we go to Bethany?
Hey, so I'm Bethany. I am in New Hampshire. I'm like an hour north of Boston. And I just found out about all of this I went to CancerCon, which is a young adult cancer conference put on by Stupid Cancer a few weeks ago, and found out all about this. So just joining and finding out what's going on. I'm in remission of stage 4 neuroendocrine cancer in my appendix, pancreas, and liver.
Excellent. Love to hear it. Can we go to Anna?
Hi, I'm actually in the UK and I heard about it through Hodgkins International, so thank you, Erin. I'm just interested really in telling my story, and so yeah, that's why I'm here.
Dynamite. Wonderful. Can we go to Sharon?
Hi, I'm Sharon Holtz. I'm calling from San Antonio, Texas. I'm a two-time breast cancer and uterine cancer survivor, and I belong to the Alamo Breast Cancer Foundation.
Excellent. Excellent. Can we go to Janet?
Okay, did I unmute myself?
Yes, you did. Great job.
Okay, all right. Janet Lathan from Tacoma Park, Maryland, and I'm a lung cancer survivor, ROS1 lung cancer, taking a targeted med. And I just last week talked to staffers at from the GO2 foundation thing, and I sort of I did do a little talk, but I'd like to learn how to improve it. So that's why I'm here.
Cool. Great. All right. We have Abby. Can we do Abby?
Yeah, hi, I'm Abby Westerman, and I'm actually a bereaved parent. My daughter was a young adult when she was diagnosed with leukemia and passed away in 2016. And started an organization, Be Present, which basically focuses on educating the young adult support network for psychosocial support, because that was something that I think all young adults struggle with, and she definitely experienced that, and it really impacts quality of life. And so this is my first time, heard about it from CancerCon as well, and I'm intrigued in telling my story, but also I have some other things. I had a workshop that I held last fall that it's interesting, your second prioritized initiative with the survivorship checklist was something that was actually brought up from the group that participated in that workshop. So there was a connection made there that I'm interested in following up in as well.
Oh,
thank you.
Fantastic. All right. And then I think our last person is Zach. Zach, do you just want to say hello? Maybe Zach isn't really there, possibly.
Zach is an NCCS staff member. So.
Okay. All right, Zach.
So Margot, there's a couple more people that joined, Susan and Dorothy.
Okay.
Susan Strong.
Hi, I'm Susan, and I'm from Denver and a Hodgkin lymphoma survivor for 38 years now, and a breast cancer survivor. Next month will be 3 years since I was diagnosed, and some other late effects from treatment. Thrilled to be here.
Great. And then Dorothy joined, and one other person?
I think Dorothy is the only one we haven't heard from. Okay, she's not unmuted, so maybe we can go ahead.
Okay, cool. All right, so it sounds to me like you all have been doing the conference for what, 2 days?
4. This is our
4 days. Oh my, wow, that's a real commitment.
Yeah.
And if this is the last session, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so is everyone exhausted, or you're raring to go, or both?
Both.
Okay, so I don't know how you guys have been communicating in other sessions. I opened up the chat on my screen, so you can either see the chat on your own computer or on my screen. Feel free to make comments or do anything you want. It makes it a lot more fun and interactive to have chat going. Basically, we have 3 different versions of sort of a how to tell your story worksheet. Because as I understand it, you all are going to be calling. You have meetings, phone meetings set up with Congress staff, health staff. So you're going to be talking about your own experience. The reason why we emphasize stories is because people can get really overwhelmed with data and facts and, you know, information in general. It can be overwhelming. But if I speak from my heart and I tell you what happened to me, or I tell you what happened to my family member, that cuts through in a way that data doesn't. Now, once you grab them, you might then put in the data once you have their attention. But stories are a way of connecting because we're all people and people are curious about people. So that's why we emphasize telling your story or telling the story of a loved one in this session. So we have, Shelley, did you say you had put the sheets in their Dropbox?
Yeah, let me give you, I'm sorry, let me put the link up to the worksheets. Sorry, I forgot to do that.
No problem. So we have 3 distinct worksheets. You can take a look at them. I don't know if you have already decided what topic you want to talk about when you call the Hill tomorrow and have your meeting. And Shelley just put in the chat, she put links to these worksheets that are on my screen. But one of them is, we're calling this kind of the generic one where you could probably use for any ask at all. Hello, I'm Margot. I'm from Washington, D.C. I live in your district. My life changed when I was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2011. I had a mammogram in April, and then I was diagnosed in May based on a follow-up visit with my surgeon to talk about a benign tumor that had turned, I guess, cancerous. Fortunately for me, my insurance covered pretty much everything. I had to pay some out of pocket for the surgeon because he didn't accept insurance. But I was luckily able to do that. Now today I've been a survivor for now 9 years. Happy to be talking to you today. There are millions of people like me. I was able to pay out of pocket, but that's really not the case for most people. Most people need affordable health insurance that covers cancer treatment. And then the ask here would be whatever the ask is. That's why we shouldn't repeal the ACA. That's why we have to improve the ACA. And that would be our call to action. Whatever the call to action is for your specific ask is going to be. So that's that sheet. As I understand it, you guys are working on 2 asks, one having to do with paid leave, extending paid leave during the pandemic. So if you want to open up your links there and take a look, we have one sheet that's tailored to that ask about extending paid leave during the pandemic. And if I'm scrolling too fast, you can open it in your own link. Supporting the HEROES Act so that people can get job protection and financial support so that they can stay home, or so that a working loved one can stay home. And then we have another sheet. This is all based on what you're going to focus on. We have another sheet where the ask is in support of the Cancer Planning and Communications Act. This is a bill, it looks like. I'm not as familiar with this bill, but this is having providers provide a treatment plan. Shelley, this means like in writing?
Yeah, yeah. And I think, and what we're trying to do, and one of the other documents at the link is the one pager, is really kind of connect this back to, with treatment, with cancer care being disrupted by the pandemic, having a written plan is even more important to help you as a patient better coordinate your care among other providers. So we've tried to, because as we talked about in our main session, that making these asks relevant to the pandemic is really important to try to capture their attention. Care planning is something we've been advocating for a long time, but I think we can talk about, if with the move to telehealth, having a care plan makes it easier to coordinate those elements of care, particularly among providers, when you're not going in to see your providers in person. But it's something that most people don't get. And this is something we will advocate for, both at diagnosis and then the transition to survivorship for people who complete their treatment.
Excellent. All right, so do folks know which topic they're going to talk about? Have folks already thought through which bill they want to talk about, or do they feel like they're going to talk about both, or how is that going to work?
We're asking people to talk about both in their meetings if they have time. Hopefully you will have time to talk about both, but for the purposes of this, you could pick one and kind of think about how you would respond to and how you would use. I just love Margot's formula of how to kind of, tell what happened to you and then use that to pivot to the policy ask. And then especially to, if you didn't have experience, like with the paid leave, I know that a lot of people are able to work from home, or maybe are retired or on disability. So it may not affect you personally because you do have a job that allows for telework. But I think especially when we talk about the disparities in cancer care that we've been talking about throughout the 4 days, I think that people who have jobs that are not able to do telework are going to be the hardest hit. And that often is people who are the same people who are hit by the disparities related to cancer care and disparities related to COVID care, because they can't, if you're a bus driver, you cannot do that from there's no telework available for that. And if you're a bus driver who's a cancer survivor, I use that example because Dr. Brawley has talked about one of his patients who's a bus driver that he's been really concerned about, because there's just no, there's not a lot of ways to make that a safer job. Whereas if you are a computer programmer and you can do that from home, you're lucky. But it doesn't mean you don't have an important story to tell your member of Congress. You just take that story and say, well, here's what I was able to do this, but what about all the people who don't have that available to them and do have these concerns of going back to work? And that's also why we shared Melissa's story, to give an example of somebody who, has high risk herself, but her job that she loves as a respiratory therapist would put her at risk, and she doesn't really have the protections that she needs right now.
Okay, so can I see, we're getting to the part where we're going to share our stories. Can I see by a show of hands how many people want to practice paid family leave? Want to practice this through paid family leave? Haven't made up your mind yet? No? Okay. How many people want to practice by talking about cancer care planning, getting the treatment plan? Oh, there's a groundswell. There's a groundswell. Okay, then I'm going to suggest we start with that one first, because it looks like there's a little more energy around that one. Of course, I can't tell what the non-camera people were doing, but that's what it looked like. So does everybody have your sheet up? Can you see your sheet? No? Janet can't see her sheet?
Janet, if you go, you can go to canceradvocacy.org/CPAT links. I put it in the chat box, but you can also type that in, and that will bring you to a page that has a link to the 3 worksheets, and also the page that the leave behind for the congressional meetings.
Okay. Has everybody been able to get to the link to the canceradvocacy.org CPAT links? No, Janet, is everybody but Janet? Janet, are you in the chat? You can unmute yourself. You can unmute.
Unmute. I opened the chat, but there's nothing. Oh, there's a link. Okay, I see it now. It came up.
Great. So click on that and see if you can see the worksheets.
Okay.
See it?
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody's there. Great. So what I would suggest is all 3 versions of the worksheet should be there. So pick the worksheet of the topic you want to use, that you want to talk about. Some folks said they wanted to work on cancer planning, the treatment plan. Some folks said they might want to do paid leave, have that be their topic. And if you have something else you want to talk about, you can use the generic sheet, the one that just says telling your story step by step. So everybody sees the sheets, right? So what I'm going to suggest is that we take, let's say 3 minutes for you to kind of fill out that worksheet. Either make notes on a pad. If you have a printer at home and you want to print and fill it out just like a form, that's fine. Or if you just want to think about it and mentally think about it, that's fine. But take about 3 minutes to think through what you want to say using the steps on the sheet. Does that work for everybody? About 3 minutes? Yeah? Give me a thumbs up if that'll work. Yeah? Okay. I'm hitting my watch now, and we're going to have 3 minutes of planning and work time on your sheet.
How many pages is this? Oh shit. Oh, I'm gonna trip and break my neck.
Okay, 10 seconds. And that's 3 minutes. Does everybody feel like, I'm sure that wasn't enough time to really prepare the way that you want to prepare? But did that give you enough of a start that you'd be comfortable doing a little practicing? Like, let's give it a try. I know Janet doesn't think so. I understand. That wasn't much time. All right, so no one's going to be put on the spot. If you don't want to practice, that's 100% cool. But if somebody would be comfortable practicing, that would be great. Before we get to who wants to volunteer, I wanted to solicit feedback on how do you guys want to react? If we were in the room, it would be quite obvious what our reaction was, but we might have to be a little more expressive. I've been at meetings where the kids are doing this. The kids these days are doing, have you seen jazz hands?
Jazz hands, I like it.
Okay. I usually just instinctually do a thumbs up. You can also, the bar at the bottom of your screen, next to the button that says record, there's a button that says reactions, and you can do applause, or you can do a thumbs up. You can do that. Those fade after a second. You don't have to do anything to take them down. So anything else is good, but I do think, oh, Erin, did you have a comment?
Yeah, so I guess my question is, and I'm assuming, well, my question is, I assume it's okay to tell our stories, but also use pieces of this and not necessarily go in that exact order. In other words, we have some flexibility in terms of how we do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think some of the comments around the plan itself, I'd want to stick pretty close to the script because that's, you know, that's said so well, and I couldn't say it quite that way. But in terms of history, what brings me here, I might kind of tweak it a little bit. Just,
absolutely.
That's okay.
This is, these materials are just offered as support to you. If it works for you, that's great. If you want to change the order or emphasize something else or do it a different way, this isn't a cookie cutter that you have to do it. But most people have enjoyed having a little bit of a crutch that they can see. Well, what if I got stuck? What would I go to? Erin, are you willing to be our first guinea pig?
Sure. Yeah. I'm just thinking. I just remember last year, I had this all planned out. I had my script. I gave my spiel, and within seconds, we got totally. It was just the sort of the organic conversation in the room. The script went out the window, and it was really just based on the questions and conversation we were having that moment, and it was great. And I think we still touched on all this stuff, but that's why I needed a refresher because I had no idea what I actually said last year. Not a clue. So this is good.
Yeah, I think that's great to be prepared. There's going to be Hill staffers that they don't interrupt you. They let you say what you're going to say. And then you're going to have Hill staffers that you introduce yourself and they jump right in with that first question. So being ready one way or the other is always a great idea.
Okay.
So do you want to do yours?
Sure. My name is Erin Cummings. I'm from Boston, Massachusetts. And I was diagnosed with Hodgkin lymphoma in 1972, which makes that 48 years ago. And it also means that I've been a cancer survivor for most of my life. My history with cancer has a lot to do with the kind of radiation and chemotherapy that were offered decades ago and the impact that those treatments had on my life as an adult. We didn't know then, no one knew then, what the impact of those kinds of treatments would be. We do know now. There are serious side effects, long-term effects of the kinds of treatments that are really not used any longer. The problem was that there was no rule book, no guideline for how to deal with these things when I was discharged finally from my treatments. Not only did the physicians that cared for me not know then, but they're still finding out what some of the repercussions are. Having the cancer player, I'm already going to blow the name. this,
Care plan.
what's the name of the act?
Just say having access to a care plan.
Yeah, okay. Having access to a care plan, in hindsight, would have been, for me, a life-saving measure that would have given me the kind of scaffolding I needed to get through the rest of my life and to be able to anticipate the kinds of late effects that were going to put me at risk. This is ever so much more important now because of what's happened during the COVID crisis in terms of folks being sort of sheltered a little bit from what's ahead, dealing with what's in their moment, and having a certain kind of uncertainty about what to expect. So for me, it would be doubly important to have not only a cancer care plan that I could talk to my doctor about and help me anticipate what's ahead, but also to get through the moment of uncertainty with what our world is facing. Those kinds of things would make a huge difference in terms of my ability to get on with life, which is hard enough as it is. Let's see, just skipping down to some of the questions. This is why I should not have gone first. I needed more time.
No, it's okay.
Erin, that was great.
I think
I don't know that I don't know how much I would say, except that, having this bill would go a long way. I mean, I kind of be getting redundant here, but
You don't have to get into every detail of the legislation. You're going to leave that. You're going to have that leave behind for them. That document that has all the information that they need. But you just made the compelling case for why it's needed because of your own experience. So I think that that's perfect. You don't have to get into details about the legislation that you're not comfortable with, but just use your story to help at least lead into that, to kind of give them the why behind the policy asks, which are in that one pager that you're going to give them.
I guess, Shelley, I don't know. I think last year I got asked questions about late effects, and that was kind of a sidetrack that we got into. People were curious about what exactly that means, but I didn't start out the conversation by sort of listing all the bad stuff that's happened. It was more of a, because there are things that happen, it would have been great to have some way to anticipate that and someone to sort of hold my hand through that and not knowing what was going to happen going forward. So I think that I would probably still stick with that. Less is more in the beginning, and if someone had questions about what kind of late effects and what that meant, that I would sort of take that up one at a time. Does that make sense?
I think it does, because what sometimes happens, I've seen people, and not as much in Hill visits, but that, kind of get into, when they're telling their story, they tell the whole medical history, right? Which is, there's time for. That's kind of why this worksheet helps you sort of hone it down to the short version of it. Now, that doesn't mean you can't get into more details in the discussion, but it lets you sort of get your opening pitch out there that, the basics of your story and how it relates to the policies that we're talking about. And then you can go in and tell more. But some people, it's hard to do because you've been through so much and you think, you want to tell the whole story. And there are situations where you get to do that. I mean, if you're giving a 20-minute presentation, you can tell the whole story, but these meetings are short, so you have to do the short version. So I think that's a great way to go about it, is just to mention that there's the long-term effects. And then, for somebody who really wants to know more, they'll ask more about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Do we want to have one more piece of feedback for Erin? What was compelling about this? What do you remember? What do you remember?
I mean, I would say how long you've been a cancer survivor is something that isn't necessarily heard of, but it's because of care changing. Hopefully we all will be able to say I'm a cancer survivor of decades. So I think that's an important fact to bring up.
Yeah.
In the uncertainty of not knowing how it's going over years, it could be relieved by a plan. Even if it was a plan with lots of branches, and possibilities, it's the unknown is really hard to handle.
Yeah. What jumped out for me, other than the sheer joy of hearing someone be a 48-year survivor, what jumped out for me was sort of the more things change, the more they stay the same. You didn't have a plan back in 1972, and many of us don't have a plan here in 2020. So that the urgency kind of struck me that it's time to do something about this.
But what stuck out for me was the ongoing issues that I guess you could say not really addressed, because me being a year and a half breast cancer survivor, and I end up on medical disability, and even now stuff keep happening to my body, and I'm like, wow, I thought this, or what do I do? But I have really been practicing being my own advocate and searching out and reaching out. At first I was angry about it, but I said, being an RN for so many years, I worry about people that don't really have a medical background and don't know, just from my medical background, things to ask for. And I've realized I'll be in therapy the rest of my life due to the chemo, neuropathy, and the weakness. And even though I don't fall like I used to, I already know my way of life has changed, and certain things I got to do just to try to keep moving forward. And it's just a lot of, I try not to stress and worry about it, but people say you look good and da 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 da. And I'm like, but this happening to me and that happening to me. So that stuck out with me because that's some of the things I've been going through.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I agree with what you said. I think the key thing is if you have a medical background, you have an idea of how to take care of yourself, but if you don't, those are the people who really need the help. I mean, I don't know how somebody without a medical background can get through these things. I mean, my aunt, I just watched her funeral mass today because I couldn't go to Buffalo from San Antonio because of the stupid virus. But she developed lymphedema many years after her 3 breast cancers, and no one knew what to do over there. So I'm trying to help them over the phone. And then I wonder if I killed her because they finally started to do some of the work on her and probably put a lot more fluid restraint on her heart and stuff, So I think, that's the big problem. You can do a care plan, but it's just a piece of paper, I think, for the department. And you really still have to advocate for yourself. And somehow people need to learn how to do that. But I don't know how.
Yeah. Those are great points. Does anybody want to practice? Does anybody want to give it a try?
I can go.
Oh, Bethany. Let's hear what Bethany has to say.
I'll try not to talk too much.
No,
So
don't.
I spend my life on Zoom meetings, so
don't worry
I
about
work
it.
from home.
Take
so
the time you need.
All right. So hi, my name is Bethany Abbott, and I'm from Nashua, New Hampshire. My life changed when I was diagnosed with stage 4 neuroendocrine cancer in multiple organs. It took me 9 months and 7 doctors to get a diagnosis. At the age of 30, no one would take me seriously and thought it was all in my head. Everybody, like when I got diagnosed, I had kind of an idea of what cancer was and how treatment would work, but neuroendocrine cancer behaves very differently than most other kinds of cancer. Usually chemo and radiation don't work, and it can affect pretty much any organ in your body because you have neuroendocrine cells all throughout your body. So instead of other cancers where it's one organ, this can be in multiple organs. So I had multiple primaries and one that spread. There was a lot of information coming at me. I got married 2 months prior. I was 30, trying to balance my career, and had doctors telling me, oh, it's not a big deal. Other doctors telling me it was, telling me I was going to have my pancreas removed, telling me liver resection, all these things that I could not keep track of. And never once did any doctor, despite seeing some of the best cancer doctors in New England, never handed me a cancer care plan. I had to take a bunch of notes during meetings. I would get confused. I tried to research information online. I work in technology. Sometimes that would help. Sometimes that would lead to me crying on my bedroom floor because I didn't think I would make it to 31. I'm glad to say I'm turning 33 in a couple months. So I am currently no evidence of disease, but I think having a plan for providers to give us, and as a patient, to when your mind is just racing, you need this stuff documented and handed to you. Even more with COVID-19, it's more important. I was very fortunate, in my last PET scan was the first week of March. So I got everything in just before the cancer center started shutting down. But I have many friends in the young adult community who had to push back their scans, push back some treatments, and it just leaves everybody in a state of uncertainty. So giving out those documents and having something to point to say, this is my next step, I think would be very beneficial to everybody, all cancer survivors.
Yay. Great job, Bethany.
That was pretty perfect. As near as I can tell. So you hit all the high points. What makes our stories work are details, and you had some really, really compelling details that just jump out at you. Your age, the unusual type of cancer, the way you said it could be all very, very vivid. I thought how you described feeling, the feeling overwhelmed, like the sitting on the floor and just feeling overwhelmed really came through, and you really made the case. If somebody could have just given me a plan, if somebody could have just given me a document so I could hold something, I think you hit all the elements, but it was also concise. I also think that was easy to follow and stay with you. So we're recording this. I was going to say, I wish we had recorded that, but we are recording these. So I think that's excellent. Really great. Anybody else have a reaction? Nancy?
Well, when I listened to Erin speak, my history is a lot like that, which is the care plan. I thought about it in terms of going forward. And I thought Bethany just made a terrific argument for why it's needed for very different reasons for each survivor. And that the plan needs to be flexible so that oncologists and whoever is contributing to it leaves a record of what was thought and what was said. So Bethany wouldn't have to keep repeating herself over and over and over in each new appointment. I thought that was really effective.
Yeah. Myra, did you have a remark?
As I was listening, I was as far as the care planning, because that was some of my issues and still are. And I couldn't understand for the life of me why my plan of care wasn't more laid out. And, like I said, being a nurse, I was kind of just picking and picking and picking. It was like I was trying to pull stuff from my providers, and I just couldn't. And it felt like nobody was really listening, because I was complaining and complaining as my body went through the changes. And like I said, the care plan would have helped. I think now that I look back over it, it's just been a year and a half, but sometimes it seemed like it's still just right now.
Yeah. I thought that was great. Does anybody else want to give it a try?
I guess I could try. It's kind of, it's hard reading my own writing, but I'm Janet Lathan from Tacoma Park, Maryland. And 3 years ago, I was ill for about half a year. And first I was diagnosed with asthma, then bronchitis. And then to our great surprise, since I'm a non-smoker and an athlete, I was diagnosed with 4th stage lung cancer. And as many people are, when you get a diagnosis, you're quite frightened and confused. And I don't know if my doctor never communicated it or whether I never heard it, but I never knew there was something called genomic testing. And I understand by talking with other survivors that a lot of people are not told right away about genomic testing, which can make a big difference in your plan. So I think one of the reasons for a plan is to make standard of care that you have genomic testing for certain cancers. I didn't know there were options, so I pushed my doctor into chemo, which turned out to be a very bad mistake for me, as it caused my colon to perforate. And so I spent the next year not coping with cancer, but coping with problems. And even then, I really didn't know what was next. I didn't know how, whether surgeries and other things should interfere with my care. Everything seemed to go from moment to moment rather than any kind of long-term plan. And I have a wonderful doctor, but it isn't kind of the standard of care to have a plan. So we didn't. For COVID, my doctor said I didn't have to come in for a test. The April test scanning I was supposed to do, I didn't come in till July. And again, I don't really understand why or what the plan is. So I have a fair amount of anxiety. And finally, I had to follow up and try and find out why was it okay to wait 6 months, for that to happen. So I think that the idea of a plan would really help everybody. It would help patients like myself, it would help caregivers, it would help people participate in their care rather than just go from point to point. And it would also help doctors because cancer, particularly lung cancer, is moving so fast with several approved new treatments just the last month that it's really hard for everybody to keep up. So having a standard of care, which was a plan, might really help get everybody get the best care they could. So I hope that you will help co-sponsor the plan bill, because I think it will help everybody. And it won't cost a great deal for people to make up a plan, even if the plan has lots of branches and possibilities rather than certainties. Anyhow, that's sort of it.
I thought that was excellent.
It was.
One thing I really liked. Let's do it. One thing I really liked about Janet's telling was when she said, "I don't know if my doctor said this or I didn't hear it." That is a really vivid and powerful point. And maybe that's why we need these things in writing is, I can't tell you. Maybe somebody said this to me. I don't know. And I definitely had that experience too. And it makes a really compelling case for getting this thing laid out for you that you can go back to it later and read it again if you need to. The other thing I want to really lift up about Janet is Janet did what for a lot of people is the hardest part, and that's the ask. Will you support this bill? Will you co-sponsor this bill? Will you vote for this bill? What can you do to move this bill? I think that's really important to, did you guys ever see that movie, Glengarry Glen Ross? There's that famous scene, always be closing. Do you remember that scene? Crazy scene. You should look it up on Alec Baldwin when he was a very handsome young man. It's a crazy scene. But it's that we're not here just to tell our stories. We're here to to go to that next step and say, now that you've heard this, wow, are you with me? Are you with me? I want your commitment. I want a yes or no answer. If you can't give me the yes or no answer, can I follow up with you and get it in 2 weeks? So I think that was terrific. Any other feedback on Janet?
That's great.
I like that you used when you're talking about, like, instead of going just from like point A to B mindlessly during cancer treatment, you talked about like the patient being able to actively participate in their care. Forget exactly how you worded it, but I remember you using the word participate, and that stuck out.
Susan, do you want to say anything? I don't think we've heard from you yet. Did you have
hi.
any?
Yeah. That was great. It's been wonderful to listen. And if you're asking, I'm happy to go next if you're
Let's do
that.
it. Let's do it.
Okay. So hi, Congressman Buck. I live in your district in Weld County. It's great to meet you, and thank you for giving us time today. I was actually diagnosed with cancer the first time when I was 17 years old, a month after I graduated from high school. And at the time, the biggest thought in my mind was, would I survive? Would I make it to age 21? And 38 years later, I'm here and I'm a survivor. And I have actually had heart disease and breast cancer as a result of my treatment. And I never would have dreamed that being a cancer survivor would impact almost every aspect of my life for my entire life. And this COVID-19 situation that we're living in, being a cancer survivor is having a huge impact on my life in dealing with this current crisis. It's impacting my ability to leave my home, to interact. I'm currently on disability retirement as a public school teacher from the results from my cancer treatment. But I worry because my loved one, my partner, is going to be starting a new job. He's been able to work from home, but he feels very worried that he can't ask a new employer to work from home because he lives with someone who's at high risk. And I'm wondering what you can do to help me and the thousands of other people like me who are suffering with significant risks because of COVID-19 that are not obvious and not in the forefront, and yet they impact us in very real ways on a daily basis. So what can you do to help us? We appreciate the HEROES Act and what's been done, but I think more needs to be done. What are your thoughts on that?
What do people think? Anybody want to react?
I thought ending with a question was really powerful.
Anybody else?
Susan, I thought that was great. I mean, it was a really powerful and talking about the impact on you of the pandemic, of not being able to go out of your house, and then the worry of, you know, your partner starting a new job. And I did like that you said, what can you do to help? Because I think that, you know, that is their job, you know, and it puts them on the spot to do that. So I thought that was really great.
Shelley, would this lead to would that open-ended question lead to a discussion of paid leave, or it doesn't apply?
I mean, I think that, you know, you mentioned the HEROES Act, so you could say, you know, and I think it might be helpful to see how your congressperson voted on it too, because if they voted against it, you could say, you know, I know you voted against this, but here's why I think it would be this provision would be helpful. Now, the thing is, they could vote against the bill and still be in favor of helping with paid leave, but you know, as we heard from Zach in the previous session, it was a you know, huge bill, and so the Republicans it was probably mostly on party lines. So I would say the Republicans who voted against it may support paid leave, but not like other aspects of it. So what we're trying to make the case is why, you know, what they're ultimately going to end up with is going to be some kind of compromise, and that paid leave makes it into whatever that compromise bill is. So even if they voted against it, they could be, you know, we're not trying to say everything in that bill was great. We're just saying this paid leave provision is really important and needs to be part of whatever we do next in the next bill to address the COVID-19.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question, Margo? I just, when hearing Susan talk, made me realize for the first time that she kind of she kind of touched on both subjects that we're being asked to address here. And I never thought about that before, but she was able to articulate the concern about the current crisis and, job situations, but also in terms of long-term survivorship issues that, need for care plans. So I guess my question is, she was almost a twofer. She got a great bang for her buck there, which was great. Is that something you would like us to try to do? Or I just thought it was great how she was able to kind of address both bills at the same time pretty seamlessly, which was pretty great.
Yeah. That's Rachel, if possible, we're going to try to get both asked in.
Yeah, I mean, if you can in your meeting, I mean, you have 15 minutes, so it's not a ton of time, but if you can address both, that's great. Or you could sort of start with one, tell your story, and then just sort of, but I mean, if you're telling your story in a way that relates some of the aspects, the details of your story to both asks, that's great. But you could sort of use the framework of this worksheet to do for one of the asks, and then just sort of talk about the policy of the other as well. But I think you're right, though, that Susan described her experience in a way that it really relates to both.
Yeah, and you can always, like Shelley said, you can always tell the story and that raises, and then just be explicit, and that raises two concerns for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then list them,
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
How would you know what your congressperson voted for or not voted for? If you email Lindsay, she can tell you. You can also go to congress.gov and put in it's HR 60. I'll find the link and post in the chat. You can see how your congressperson voted on it. So just let me look for that real quick while you guys continue talking.
Okay.
Did they vote on different pieces, or is it all one big on this bill?
Pardon, say that again.
Is it one big omnibus bill, or do they vote on different pieces?
They vote on the bill itself. It is a large bill. It is. It has a lot in it. So I'll give you the link to it, and you can look at. Or if you go to congress.gov and look up HR 6800. Let's see. If you go to actions, it was passed in the House, and then you can go to the roll call, and it tells you who voted yes and who voted no. I believe it was pretty party line, but I can't be sure that there were no crossovers. Oh, actually, it shows you here. There were 14 Democrats voted no, only one Republican voted yes. So it was mainly a party line vote, although some of the Democrats voted against it as well. But, again, they could have voted against other provisions in the bill that had nothing to do with paid leave and still be supportive of what you're asking for.
Janet, did you get through to that link?
Actually,
I didn't try yet.
Let me send you this one. This is a little bit easier to get to because it's directly the roll call vote.
Oh, here. Okay.
Does that work? Yeah, the roll call vote. The second link I sent shows you who voted and yes and who voted no.
Okay. Let's see.
In this case, like sometimes you want to call people out for voting against something. In this case, I wouldn't necessarily do that. You could say, I understand you voted against this, but here's why I want you to understand why this is important. Because, again, when it's a bill that has that much in it, they can vote against it without being against every provision of it. But it was I think Zach said $3.4 trillion. I mean, there was a lot of reason for people for Republicans to vote against it just for the amount of money it was. And I do believe that Democrats tried to put in things that I think they were trying to make a point and put in things that they wanted that they knew Republicans wouldn't be able to support. This was not a nonpartisan bill or a bipartisan bill. It was really a Democratic effort. Unlike some of the first few bills that passed that were much more of a compromise. So this was like, here's what we want. And knowing that they're not going to get it all, but that ultimately it comes down to whatever the compromise would be with the Senate when they finally agree on something. So we just want whatever that agreement is to include support for paid leave provisions to help people who can't return to work.
This link is supposed to be to the roll call vote?
The second link I sent is to that has clerk.house.gov and then has roll 109. That's the link to the roll call vote.
Okay, I don't see it.
Okay. Let me try putting it in again. See if I can get it.
Okay. Is this, okay, maybe this is it. Yeah, I think I've got it now.
Is Jamie Raskin your
Yes.
congressperson?
Yes.
Okay.
You voted
So
for it.
yays, let's scroll down quickly to R.
Yeah, I see him.
There he is. He's in a yay.
Yeah.
Not too surprising, but there you
Uh,
go.
Fexos on the Cancer Caucus.
Right.
So I have a question.
But-
If our rep is a yay, like if they voted for this before, how would we frame that part of the conversation?
You could say thank you for voting for. Thank you for voting for the HEROES Act. And I know that the Senate still has to pass their version, so we just hope that you will advocate to make sure that the final bill includes paid leave.
Okay, we're hitting the 2:30 mark. Did anybody have any other questions to close it out?
So would it be more worth it to try and go after the Senate people, or there isn't a bill there yet? Is there a bill in the Senate for this?
Yeah, Senator McConnell has said that they're not interested in passing the House version of it. So when you talk with your senators, you can just talk about how important these provisions are. I mean, I think the focus is more on the paid leave provisions than the bill itself, because what will end up being, if they come to agreement, it won't necessarily be that specific bill.
Right.
So I would say just talk about the need for paid leave support for cancer survivors.
Okay.
The concept.
Yeah.
One more question before we let y'all get back to life. Anything?
Who would we, I'm fairly new at this, but I was thinking as I was sitting here about one of the issues I felt like should be addressed is with insurance. Like, I retired from the government. I had great insurance, but my insurance didn't really cover, so I was left with a lot of out-of-pocket. And now that I'm over into the next year, the co-pays, like I had a PET scan today, that stuff is whipping my butt.
Yeah.
Trying to, be well, but yet the insurance, even with the medicines and all that kind of stuff, some of it is just not paying, and I just don't get it.
Yeah. No, that's a big issue. I mean, it's not just having access to insurance, but having insurance that actually helps cover the things you need and doesn't have the huge copays. And I think that's something that we're definitely also addressing, but we had to sort of pick and choose issues for this particular one. And part of it is what we talked about, that their focus is really on COVID related legislation right now. So I think it'll continue to be part of what we work on in terms of financial toxicity and adequacy of the health insurance benefits, but it's just not part of what we're talking about in these Hill visits right now.
Okay.
But we know it's a huge issue.
Okay. Thank you.
So I guess the calls are happening tomorrow?
Tomorrow
Is
and
that right?
Thursday, yeah.
Tomorrow and Thursday. So I just want to express my appreciation for everybody doing your calls. It's really powerful what you're doing. Being a constituent and calling your congressperson is the biggest thing you can do. They don't want to hear from people outside the district, but you are voters and you have a lot of power. And I think everybody's going to do great, and you can keep refining what you want to say and feel prepared. And once you get on the phone, it might go, as Erin pointed out at the beginning, it might go in a different direction, or you might get a question. But I think you're all in good stead to do this tomorrow and Thursday, and I appreciate you doing it.
And it's also about building a relationship with them too. So if you talk to them tomorrow and then you offer to be a resource and they can follow up with you later if they have questions about something else, or then, so, you know, you develop a relationship with that person so they see you as somebody that they can go to. I just want to thank all of you for showing your screens and for participating and not being afraid to be a guinea pig and give your spiel, and you all did a great job. And thank you so much, Margot, for sharing your experience and wisdom as a storyteller and as a communicator and persuader. So we are really grateful for you and your efforts.
This is a great group. This was an excellent group.
You guys did a great job.
Thanks, everybody. Sorry I didn't show. I'm still in my pajamas. It's early here.
That's okay. You're allowed to be.
That's what the stay-at-home orders are all about. Stay in your pajamas as long as you want.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Good luck.
Good luck, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.